Hi, everyone. You're watching a webinar here with LA New Product Development Team. My name is Van, and I'm here with Speed Bancroft, inventor and serial entrepreneur. His latest enterprise, Bars, is bringing practical automation to restaurants. Now, Speed, tell us a little bit about yourself and about your company and how you got it started.
Okay. The way I got it started, I guess you'd have to rewind back to my history. I've always been an entrepreneur. I went to LSU, studied finance. I never got excited about it, but I was, when you're young like that, going through college, you don't really know who you are. You're doing things just to try to have some type of career. You don't know what you're going to do. So I got out there. First thing I did, I started working for my father in very labor intensive jobs, driving trucks, loading warehouses, or loading trucks in warehouses, being a picker in a warehouse. Then I moved up to warehouse manager after 6 months, a year. Then I did front desk sales, and for 2 years I did outside sales, which I was actually extremely fearful of. I started that, I think, when I was 18. I wasn't very good at it when I was doing it in high school or right out of high school. I was selling paper and chemicals, very boring types of products, nothing with any pizzazz. But I enjoyed the sales because it was a real opportunity. So I started doing the sales. I learned that. They promoted me to sales manager. I met all my quotas. I stayed organized. I did all the things that I was trying to do, and kind of just trusted my mentors. And it worked and got me, promoted a little bit. And then I started managing my first little crew. It was a crew of about 4 sales reps and myself. I had to still manage my own territory, but that really taught me, or gave me a drive when I got promoted, because I got a little bit more pay. I got a lot more respect. I wasn't pulling stuff from the warehouse, which is, anybody can do those types of jobs. So I wanted something that would challenge me. I've always done that. Always looked for things that would challenge me, and things that I could say, wow, I did this. It was really, really hard job to do, but I did it. And so that started with me really early. I bought my first business when I was 25. After I was sales manager for maybe 12 months to 18 months, something like that. I had an opportunity to buy the business and assume the general manager position. And that's what I did, and had that business. And I believe I bought it in 2006 and sold it in 2009. And that was really an eye-opener. What I learned is that I really wasn't doing more work as the CEO, general manager, from what I was doing as sales manager. I was just as busy, but I was getting paid more. And that's when it struck me that I had the organizational skills, the management skills to do high management stuff, even though I never really got any formal training for it.
Right.
I kind of just watched. I'm more of a tactile type of learner. I studied from the hands-on approach. I couldn't stand school. I was not good at that. But anyway, I learned 2009. I sold my first business, Bancroft Paper and Chemicals. Made a pretty good little thing I think I was 29 at the time. And it was amazing. I moved from from Jackson, Mississippi to Baton Rouge. And then I immediately got started on my first little startup gig, which was called the Outdoor Shopper. The Outdoor Shopper, I raised $1.1 million. And it was, the first check, it didn't come all at once, but the first check was $75,000. And I got an investor in for $150,000.
Wow.
And so he came in, he gave me $75,000. I remember walking into my dad's house with a $75,000 check. and for Christmas.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, it wasn't my check; it was going to the company. But I
Right.
really, was very proud of it. Like, hey, look, this guy believes in this project just as much as I do. And the goal for that project was to scale a small shopping show into a network, a shopping network similar to QSR, similar to QVC, which is a
Mm-hmm.
huge undertaking. But
Yeah.
if you learn how to take these little steps, small, kind of like what we're doing with Bancroft Automated Restaurant Systems,
Mm-hmm.
you start with a prototype. You get to know it. You start with one location, and then it's just about scaling. So you're really not doing. I know a lot of people get fearful of, wow, as the CEO, I would just have to be doing, or if I started my own business, I'd have to be doing all this stuff. And you do. You have to do a ton of stuff. You have to wear a lot of hats. But um, as long as you're hiring good people to back you up,
Mm-hmm.
and to do some of the work that you can't always get to, and you hire good people, you're going to do just fine.
Right.
But anyway, so I went into my first startup outside of the paper company in 2009, late 2009. I formed my first LLC for the purposes of raising capital. First check was 75,000. I think 6 months later, if I showed progress, he put in his second installment of 75, and he did. We filmed at my hunting club.
Mm-hmm.
So I didn't rent a studio. I shaved expenses wherever I could. We shot our first production there, and then I aired it on a network called the Pursuit Channel, and it was outdoor for hunting and hiking. So
Yeah.
that's the type of demographic it was airing to.
Yeah.
And we did really well. We did a. I remember our first shoot was a 3-to-1, which is you spend $1, and for every $1 you spend in airtime, you bring in $3, and you had to carry a 50% margin, and then you had to have the vendors carry the cost of production, and that was the model. And you would end up with about a net profit margin on your bottom line, if you did it right, about 10%.
Mm-hmm.
8 or 10%. It was a really good thing that we got into. But when I started scaling that, I learned that the airtime that we started in initially was a prime spot, and I'd gotten it for pennies on the dollar.
Yeah.
So
Nice.
when we started scaling it, the metrics, I looked at the operational ratios, and they weren't there. We actually ended up after our third year, we were doing a 0.7 over 1, $0.7 to every $1 we spent.
Oh.
And,
Yeah.
and I was having to really lean heavily on the vendors.
Mm-hmm.
I think they were paying $5,000 a spot, and they were getting a ton of airtime, but it just didn't end up working out. So I sold the company, sold it to Kevin Harrington from Shark Tank,
Mm-hmm.
and a couple of my initial investors. My board ended up doing a corporate redemption for my stock. I got out clean. They took the company for another year. I don't know exactly how much more capital they raised, but they ultimately learned the same thing that Ari already knew by
Mm-hmm.
studying the financials, and that was that if you don't have a 3-to-1 and a 50% profit margin, you're not going to make it in that business. And they learned that, and they shut it down. But it was a great first startup. I think that was late 2013. That's when I started doing automation,
Okay.
learning everything I could about automated equipment, what type of technology is out there. I was going to the trade shows out in Chicago at Automate. I was going to the PAC expos. I was going to anywhere. Oh, the food expos, NRA. I was doing all of those shows to learn, to see what was out there and see what people were developing. And once I saw what they were developing, I knew, just because I believe that I have an engineer's mind. I certainly don't have finance, but I started seeing what they were developing, and I knew I could do something better. And
Mm.
that's when I started putting together the automated hamburger system. I spent 2 years on that before I found out the right way to do it, and I spent about $60,000 doing the wrong thing, doing the
Mm.
wrong method.
I
And
see.
then I learned how to do I read a book, Rice, I forgot the guy's name, Carl Rice or something like that. It was called The Lean Startup.
Mm-hmm.
And I read that book and I learned the right methods to do a product launch. And it doesn't matter what type of product, big or small, you have to do, an MVP, minimum viable product. Test your product just like an experiment. It's you're putting that thing out in the field. You want to test it. What all can it do? Do customers accept it? And that's what we're in the process of doing right now. We're Louisiana New Product Development Team is now finalizing the designs
Mm-hmm.
for our
Yep.
first system, and then they're going to get started on the construction of the prototype, and hopefully they'll even carry the manufacturing. But that's where we are right now, and it's really exciting to see all of this materialize.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Well, thanks for sharing that story. Let's move on to the next question here. So, how did you, um, so you needed the capital to invest in something like this, right? It's a large
Yeah.
investment, huge undertaking on your part. So, how did you get the capital to fund this project?
So the first thing I did was I got with anybody who could help me out developing the tools, and you really need 3 tools in your war chest to be able to start raising capital. You need a term sheet,
Mm-hmm.
you need an executive summary, and you need a pitch deck. Those are the 3 things you always need. Those are the 3 things that are most frequently reviewed, and you should have all the answers on those 3 documents.
Mm-hmm.
So I had a group over at the here in Baton Rouge at the LA Tech Park. I had them help me, assist me. They have a program that is run specifically for entrepreneurs such as myself, and they helped me put all the documents together. After that, I I had I had been while I was doing the hamburger system, I had contacted hundreds and hundreds of potential investors, and I had a list, and still have the list. I'm still working on it, but
Yeah.
I started calling those people, and I think the first one who came on board was Chris Moe with Waiter.
Mm-hmm.
He came on
Wow.
board, and that was Constantine and Onega were both at that meeting with me in Lafayette. We did a face-to-face, and I bought my TV and
Mm-hmm.
my computer with my pitch deck on it, and I went through it. And Chris is a seasoned, very experienced entrepreneur, so he probably saw what I was doing and saw the passion, and he took a gamble to see, is this, maybe this guy is going to do what he says he can do, because it's all about follow through.
Right.
Anyway, so I pitched. At that meeting, we got our first confirmation of an investor coming on board, and he came on board, and his thing was that you have to raise a certain percentage of the full capital required, the funding requirements. You had to raise a certain percentage, and so knowing that, I went to, before he would release any funding to us, we had to reach a benchmark. And so I then I set a list of people in the Baton Rouge community that I wanted on my board and as investors. One was Mitch Rotolo. Another one was Roca Pizza and Lid Pizza owner, and Izzo's Illegal Burrito owner, Ozzy Fernandez. And I started going after them. I was hounding them, calling
Yeah.
them all the time, going to their offices and pitching to them constantly. And they saw the dream as well, and they knew that the system would provide a better operational efficiencies. So they came on board as well. So then I had 3, and then Chris Moe's attorney, Mark Graffignini, decided to come in,
Mm-hmm.
and so that gave us 4. And Chris Moe's attorney, Caristone, Mark Graffignini with Caristone, his firm, is the firm who took Waiter through all of its different levels of funding, the different stages. So I knew I was in with the right people. It was perfect. And
Hmm.
it could not have been better. It just, to everything that we've done now, it's really, I'm very blessed. But anyway, I set some objectives, some people that I wanted on the board that I knew would give us the right experience and the right information. And that would translate to other investors coming on board because they would see that.
Right.
And so I did that. That was my little baby step. And then after they came on board, I started pitching to other investors and getting larger chunks of capital. And right now, we've currently raised, and we're in Series A. We've got 2 guys coming on board, which is going to put us at 300,000 raised. It's not a lot of money for a project like this. I mean, certainly we raise more in the Outdoor Shopper, but for the money that we've got, for what we can do with it, building that prototype, and I'm still raising more capital. I'm hoping to get up to 500,000, which I will do,
Hmm.
and that money will give us the amount of money to pay for the prototype, do all the testing that we need to do inside y'all's lab,
Yep.
and also it will leave us a little bit of money to take that prototype and put it into the Tigerland bar area, which I secured for us, an area right in front of Reggie's and Fred's, which is a popular bar
Hmm.
area. And we're going to run it there.
Wow.
Hopefully, in 2020, early 2020, if it's possible. But
Yeah.
whenever those kids come back, hopefully from Christmas break, that's when I want to hit that spot.
I see. Okay. So, when you're approaching people like Chris Moe, these big names in the food industry, do you have a certain strategy that you take for each person, and could you identify a specific point where they kind of were converted almost, or like they were really sold on the idea on investing with you?
Mine was more of a process. Van, I listened. I try to listen more than I talked.
Hmm.
I would do my little pitch deck. That was rehearsed, and I knew everything that I had to say because I memorized everything. I could do it without looking at the pitch deck. I think everybody should be able to do that when they're pitching, is be able to go from slide to slide in their mind
Hmm.
without looking at any visual aids. Um, and that's how you know when you really got it. And you can be
Hmm.
confident in pitching if you can do it without looking at it. But what I learned from each investor, I learned a little bit something different. And I was listening and learning. And when they would make a suggestion, I would edit it, and they saw that, and I think they appreciated that I was doing what they said and making the pivots that were needed to get this thing to where it was going. Because most of these guys have done this before, and they know how to keep me, the visionary, away from the landmines that are out there, and there are tons of them.
Right.
And if you have a guy that doesn't listen and is not going to do what you say, then what's the point of forming a board in the first place? So I think they saw that, and that really helped me get more information. And I was reading several books on subjects. Also reading different business models, so I knew the lingo that goes along with it. I'm reading a book right now on the guy who started Massage Envy, and The Joint, which is a chiropractor that is a franchise. And this guy's doing really good, and he's got all the tricks to doing a franchise. I don't know if that's the business model we're going to follow, but I read a lot, I listen a lot, and I'm trying to learn, because nobody knows everything, and nobody gets a company like what we're trying to do. Nobody gets that type of company up and going and successfully scaling without a really good team and without other people helping. It just doesn't happen. Uh, you know, and not everybody can be an Elon Musk.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it seems like you've had a lot of success so far, and um, what kind of challenges did you come across throughout this process, and how did you overcome that?
Um, Well, I guess the first challenge was when we didn't raise any capital for the first 2 years.
Right.
And that's a pretty daunting task. We were doing a
Hmm.
hamburger system and nobody was investing. And I had to pivot. I eventually said, well, we have got to pivot. It's not going to work. And I got to figure out a simpler system, something that I could start for way less capital, under 1 million. That was my goal. And when I did that, I immediately started seeing results. And I went and did some more development to give us some assets to back the investments off of. I filed for 2 patents that cost me, I think, close to $30,000. I did the designs with Constantine for the fried chicken system.
Hmm.
So we had the tech specs on that. So they were able to see that we had a little traction,
Right.
and that we had something to base our valuation off of, which a lot of companies don't. I had 2 patents and some designs, and even though we weren't doing the fried chicken system first, I showed it to him and was able to illustrate the level of work that we were able to do, that we're able to do with y'all's company, y'all's engineering company. And that helped. That really helped. And they got to see some real designs instead of my renderings,
Right. Yeah.
which, anybody can do those.
Exactly. So, um, what what do you think was the best yeah, solution that you came up with that kind of propelled you forward? Something that really accelerated your success.
Um, Getting with the LA Tech Park, that was a big stroke of luck.
Hmm.
Um, Also, reading the book on how to do the lean startup, that really helped me because when I was doing the outdoor shopper, I was raising tons of money, and not a lot of investors are going to do that
Hmm.
for an early stage investment in a project like ours. For this, they want to see something, a little bit of traction in smaller steps and raising smaller amounts of capital and improving things in a small way to minimize your impact,
Hmm.
minimize your capital that you need. And when I learned how to do that, and I knew that, hey, I could just raise 250,000, not 1.5 million, and I could obtain a proof of concept. That's what really propelled me. That's when people were like, I can put in 25,000 or 50,000 or 100,000. I don't have to put in 250,000,
Right.
and this guy can get going. And that's what propelled me, I believe.
Okay. Okay. Um, and then looking back at this whole process and your experience growing this business, um, what what are some things you wish you would have known from the start?
The MVP, how to do a project like this the right way, and raising small amounts of money, building a prototype first,
Hmm.
and doing small proofs of concept to build investor confidence and to show that you have follow through. You don't have to go out and raise, $1 million or $2 million. In fact, if you're doing that right now, you're probably doing it the wrong way.
Yeah.
Not a lot of projects do that are startups. If you are Elon Musk, you can do stuff like that because you probably put in a ton of capital of your own. But if you're starting from scratch and you've put in 20, 30, or $40,000 like I did, just to get to the point to where you can start pitching, people are not going to put in $1 million. It's so rare; it's astronomically the odds are against you.
Hmm.
So find a way. My advice would be find a way to do it for extremely cheap, because after you prove out the concept on a very small level, it's just a matter of scaling. So
Yeah.
it's academic that if you raised 1.5 and built the Taj Mahal, compared to raising a quarter of a million or half a million and building a scaled model of the Taj Mahal. It's academic. It doesn't matter. You're still going to get your valuation in the
Right.
next round. to what you wanted to. So, why not take the easier route?
I see. Okay. And then my final question for you, Speed. What would you say the role of perseverance and persistence has played in your efforts to gain the funding you need?
Oh, it was the number one thing.
Hmm.
I've done this project for 4 years, and I've spent 135,000 or 140 somewhere around in there, a lot of money to make sure that this project sees the light of day. Who knows if it's going to work? I don't know. I don't have a crystal ball,
Right.
but I certainly was not going to give up. That was never in the equation for me. I just not. I was working construction jobs. I was doing everything I could to keep cash coming in up to a certain point. To once we start, I knew that the goal was really obtainable. Then I dropped out and focused 100% on this project. But you have to stay tenacious, and persistence is probably the number one thing. If you get into a project and you don't have that clout, the backbone, or that bite like a bulldog, you're not going to make it. The odds are really
Yeah.
against you. You have to see this thing through to the very end, no matter what. If all of the metrics and everything makes sense, if you still believe in it after you've gotten beat up by hundreds of investors. I've gotten beat up on my project hundreds of times, and I've had to pivot, and that is what makes you better. And if you pivot and keep at it, you'll finally come out with an opportunity. Who knows if the pizza system is going to work? It certainly looks like it will, but I think it's less than 9% of businesses see it to their fourth year that are startups. Less than 9%. That's not very good. So, you have to be willing to go to do that, and keep that out of your mind, and don't get discouraged, and just keep going.
Right. Right. Well, thank you, Speed, so much for sharing your knowledge and your experience with this. I guess main takeaways from this webinar are that you really got to stay persistent. You have to be data driven, knowledge driven, and just have to take the time to learn the field and learn the area yourself.
Yeah,
Would
that's
you agree?
right.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I agree. That's a good takeoff from this.
Okay. Great. Well, again, Speed, thanks so much for your time. Really appreciate you taking the time to talk with us.
Absolutely. Thanks, man.